Welcome watchers to this video. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'm here to look at this question of will there be an ARK 2. I'm going to do some research, look at everything I can find to try and draw a conclusion about this. We're going to look at what is the state of the game at the moment, and to do that we'll go back in time and look at what the start of ARK was like, and we're going to have a look at what is the player base like now, what are the numbers on the servers, what's everyone doing, and that will draw us to conclusions as to where is ARK now, what is it actually like now. We're going to look at money. Money is important in game development obviously, and we're going to look at what the developers have said, and maybe you should ask the question of what would you do, because I think if it's obvious to you then it's pretty obvious to everyone, and to me the answer is indeed that, pretty obvious. I'm pretty certain as to what Wildcard Studios will do, and I'm going to draw my conclusions at the end here, and I hope you enjoy the analysis here. I brought a lot of stuff together, packaged it together, drawn some conclusions, and I hope you find it very informative. Don't forget to hit the like button if you have liked that, I would appreciate it, and consider subscribing, that would be brilliant as well. Let's get into it. So down the right hand corner there you'll see the Studio Wildcards emblem. That'll be popping up throughout this video. Now ARK was fully released in August 2017, but it was actually released into early access 2 years earlier in June 2015. So there's a lot of early access time before it reached its full release. And if we jump into the Steam charts here, you can have a good look at what is happening with ARK itself, where it's tracking. Now I've highlighted there, this is when ARK was brought into early access, and it tracks all the way there to when it was fully released into full development. Now you'll see there that around this time about 80,000 players a day. Now I don't know if that actually means 80,000 unique players or one person logging on 4 times would count as 4 persons, I don't really know, but it's pretty high numbers. Now if you track over to the right all the way up to the full release time, you see there is dips and curves, but the game stays strong. Now if we jump here to a closer look in the last year, this starts to give you a bit of a feel what it's like. That's Valguero, that's Valguero, pronounce it how you want. That was the release of Valguero, quite a steep increase in player counts. But if you track backwards over time, over the last 3, 4, 5 months, you see yet again the player base is quite strong, with a peak here back in November when there was a sale. So we can get a bit of a picture of what ARK is like with its player base at the moment by looking at these stats. It sort of shows us that player numbers are actually pretty consistent over time, with peaks and troughs that actually coincide with 2 different things. One is a release of DLC for Extinction, for example. There was quite a jump up in player counts then, or a sale, as you would expect, and you often see those rises in the numbers there. So what does this tell us? Well, what it tells me is that we have a very strong base player numbers in ARK. It's actually really good. It's obviously not a #1 game as far as a lot of games go, but it has a strong base player support. New players come in and more players come in from time to time. They're drawn in by the various sales, maybe by the DLCs, but they actually leave again quite quickly, leaving the base players behind to continue playing the game. So let's just keep that in mind and look at the structure of the way ARK's developed. Wildcard Studio is the key developer. They do all the announcements, they're the one who hold the can for most of this stuff. But they're not alone. It is also supported by a co-development team called Instinct Games. They're based in Egypt, but sitting over the top of them all is a company called Snail Games. They're a Chinese-based game. They got quite a big platform for a lot of little sub-games, and I think they've got quite a bit of money. They own Wildcard Studios. So what we know is that at the beginning of ARK, there was a big influx of money, as you would expect it. But that is obviously not good enough for people when they do early access. They require an income stream. And over time, with sales and releases of DLCs, there have been small influxes of money to keep the income stream going, because that is vital for any development studio. It is all about money. Don't forget that. So let's look at the money. Well, we know in the first week, ARK made about 10 million, the first month about 20 million. Now, it's possible that they have sold in the first couple of years up to 9 million copies of the game. Now, if you take that as being accurate, it's possible that ARK itself may have made well over, pardon me, $200 million easily. Now, the stats also possibly show that there is a large core player base. There's a lot of people who sit on the outskirts as well, and those people are very inconsistent in their play. They sort of wait in the shadows for updates or upgrades. Maybe they're not really happy with playing the core game and they just wait for changes to jump back in and see what they're like. But the majority of Wildcard Studios' income has been in the early stages of the game, and their income streams are a lot lower right now. So let's have a look and see if there's been any hints as to whether there be an ARK 2. And the first thing we're going to look at is the Extinction End cinematic scene. You can jump forward and skip it if you've already seen it, but let's see if it actually says anything.
It's finally begun. The ARKs are coming home. Each one carries with it the seeds of new life, plants, animals, and humans. And these seeds will take root across the far corners of the world. Once they do, all that life will be unleashed. From there, it will spread, grow, and thrive. And this planet, our home, will bloom once more. As for the rest of the infection, well, the ARKs can take it from here. In time, they'll purge every last bit of element from the soil. But make no mistake, this is all thanks to you. I'm just glad I got to see it. Oh, look at that. The sun's rising.
So we should be very careful about drawing conclusions from those post-credit scenes, but I'm just going to replay it for you a couple more times. Have a look at that obelisk in the background there. One more time. Yeah, that obelisk lights up. It goes from dark to light, and that might indicate that element is coming back into the world. So maybe hinting at a sequel, but don't draw much from it. You should never draw much from those little post-credit scenes. It could mean absolutely nothing. So let's look about, it was a couple years back, something that was reported in gamesindustry.biz, where one of the lead developers, when he was talking about Atlas, and they got a lot of negative press about that, of course, was whilst being interviewed about that, actually made a comment saying that, quite simply, that the ARK sequel was in development, or in the least being considered, and it would be stupid not to do so. It was later refuted by the PR side of the company, saying that he was speaking hypothetically. But also keep in mind during those early stages of ARK that Wildcard got a lot of negative press during the early access process. They made a lot of announcements about what they were doing. They didn't actually hold up to a lot of those benchmarks or things they were announcing, and they got a lot of bad press, and they were later quoted as saying it wasn't something that they would recommend to anyone. So when you're talking about future releases, that's what they do. They keep quiet about it. It hasn't worked well for them in the past to make very many early announcements. So picture yourself as the boss of Wildcard. You have a game that has a solid base of players. It has people coming and going from it. It has some income streams, but they're not as high as you would want. But on the other side, you've been very clever and you've made modding a big aspect of your game. And we know when we look at the servers now that unofficial servers hold a very strong place in the ARK world, and modding is really taking off. You have a big development team. Would you waste your time using that development team now, right now, spending a lot of their time developing expansions? No, you don't. You would bring in modders, and Valguero is an absolute perfect example of that. Right now, or in the very near future, I suspect that the core development team of Wildcard will start working on ARK 2 and leaving future changes and upgrades to ARK, like little DLCs or further maps or things like that, to the modders. They will bring the modders in, pay them in a professional manner, bring them into the team, but they won't, as a studio, invest huge amounts of money in that. The modders will keep ARK going for a significant period of time until ARK 2 is ready to be released. I think it is going to be released because it doesn't make any sense not to do so. But don't think that they are going to talk about it. They've been stung in the past by talking too early. They're not going to make any announcements about it. They're not going to reference it. They're not going to talk about it until they're ready to talk about it. They've been through a lot, Wildcard Studios, but ARK is a massive money spinner for them. And if it makes money, why the hell would you not release another ARK? It's like doing another Avengers movie, isn't it? Why did they do so many of them? It's not to complete a story. Don't be stupid. It's basically to make money. ARK is a money spinner. And right now, I think that they are probably in the early design stages of an ARK 2, but you're never going to hear them talk about it until they're ready to talk about it. So that's what I think. I think it all stacks up. I don't know when it's going to happen, but yeah, it's going to happen. And let's wait and see what future announcements are made by Wildcard. And hopefully it won't be too far in the future, but I suspect we got a while to go yet. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I greatly appreciate your viewing. Hope you enjoyed it. There was a lot of information I didn't put into this just to try and keep it down in time to make it a quick video. There's lots of references, newspaper articles, all that sort of stuff. But thanks for watching. Yet again, if you liked the video, hit a little bit like. If you feel like subscribing, do so. That would be great. And I'll see you in the next chapter.